Hello, welcome to Theology Thursday. Today I want to talk about something you may well be familiar with, somewhat, maybe not so much. That is what's called the Nazarite vow. Now when we think about the Nazarite vow, most people immediately think about Samson and not cutting your hair, and that certainly is a part of the Nazarite vow, and that's certainly something that we find. But I want to look at the Nazarite vow, and then I want to show you a kind of cool connection and talk a little bit about some implications, or at least one that people may ask. So Numbers chapter 6 is where we find the instructions for the Nazarite vow. It comes from the Hebrew word Nazar, which is where we get Nazarite, so it's the Nazar vow. So it means to be separated, and so there was a reason for that, show their separation. So let's just kind of go through number 6 and talk about it. So the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when either a man or a woman makes a special vow, the vow of a Nazarite, to separate himself to the Lord." So here we find a couple of things. First of all, either a male or a female could observe the Nazarite vow, even though for the rest of the chapter it only talks about a male doing it. But we are told that a male or a female could take the Nazarite vow. Secondly, there is no command to do this. If someone wants to do this, if someone wants to take this Nazarite vow, this special vow, then here's how they're going to do it. And I'm just going to kind of step aside for just a second here and talk about this. This is very important because much of the Bible are not actually commands from God to do something. They are instructions for, if you're going to do it, here's how you're going to do it. So if you're going to get married, here are the regulations for that. But there's no command to be married. It's perfectly fine to be single. Or if you're going to pray, here's how I want you to pray. There are regulations for it. There are regulations for eating. Not commands to eat. That's a natural human drive, but regulations for that. Parenting. There's no command to parent. But if you're going to parent, here is how you're going to do it. There are no commands to own a business. But if you own a business, there are regulations for how that is done. There are no commands to be a farmer, but if you want to farm, there are regulations for how that is done, so on and so forth. So there are not as many commands maybe as we think there are. There are a lot of, if you're going to do it, here's how you're going to do it. If you're going to sacrifice an animal, here's how you do it. If you're going to sacrifice a drink offering, here's how you're going to do it. If you're going to do a free will offering, here's how you're going to do it. When you do it, I'm going to make sure you do it my way. It's basically what we find throughout much of the Old Testament and even into the New Testament. So this is something that's taken voluntary, but if you're going to do it, God says you will do it the way I specify it to be done. So if a man or a woman volunteers to do this, here's how then it's going to be done. Verse 3. Again, we're in Numbers chapter 6. He will separate himself from wine and strong drink. So no touch wine. He shall drink no vinegar made from wine or strong drink, will not drink any of the grape juice, the juice of the grapes, or eat grapes, fresh or dried, meaning raisins. So nothing to do with the grapevines at all. So stay away from them. So no touch wine. All the days of separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, not even the seeds or the skins. All the days of his vow of separation, no razor shall touch upon his head, until the time is completed for which he separates himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. He shall let the locks of hair of his head grow long. So no touch grapes of any kind. No touch hair. Now there's something else that we find in this hair command. That's the first time to arise during this passage. And that is that it is a specified amount of time. That you do this until the time is completed for which he separates himself. So when you undertake the vow, it is for a specified time period. It may be until the drought is ended, or until my child is born, or until the war is over, or whatever it may be. But it was connected with something usually, and there was a specified time amount. So during this time that I've set apart, I will not touch anything from the grapes. I will not touch my hair. And then there's a third no touch. Verse 6. All the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he will not go near a dead body, not even for his father or his mother, brother or sister. If they die, shall he make himself unclean. Because his separation to God is on his head, all the days of separation he is holy to the Lord. Now let's talk about this. We have sanitized death. Most people die in a hospital, oftentimes behind closed doors. Sometimes family is with them and sometimes not. Death is much cleaner than it was in the ancient world. We give people medications to help ease their pain in their final days and moments of life. But there was none of that in Bible times. Most of the families lived on a family farm, and when grandma or grandpa, their days were coming to an end, they would moan in pain, and there was not a whole lot to be done to help them, unless you got them drunk, to relieve pain. And so, the whole family was there, and if mom or dad passed away, you didn't call a coroner. There were no funeral homes. The family prepared the body, and the family buried them. So what he says is, look, even if it's your mom or your dad, you're not allowed to participate in end-of-life issues. You're not allowed to help prepare the body because you'll be touching the body. You're not allowed to help bury them because of the days of your separation on your head. That's how seriously God takes this Nazarite vow and how seriously he wants them to take this Nazarite vow. So no touch grapes, no touch hair, and no touch the dead. Now, of all of those, the one that could happen accidentally would be touching dead people. He gives an example starting in verse 9. If you're walking along with someone and they have a heart attack and fall over and touch you, that now you're unclean. You've touched a dead person during the Nazarite vow, though it was accidental. You'll shave your head on the day of your cleansing. On the seventh day, you'll shave it. So now, if you accidentally touch someone dead, the time period of the Nazarite vow is 7 days. From that point, 7 days, and in 7 days, then you will shave it. And on the 8th day, you'll bring 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons to the priest to the entrance of the tent of meeting. And the priest shall offer one for sin offering, the other for a burnt offering, make atonement, because he sinned by reason of the dead body. He'll consecrate his head that day, separate himself from the Lord for the days of separation, and bring a male lamb a year old for gift offering. But the previous period shall be void, because his separation was defiled. So we end it. Didn't happen, and now we pick up, and we're going to start over again till the prescribed time period is over. And this is the law of the Nazarite, and now we get this long, complicated, I'm not going to read all of it, but beginning of verse 13, all the way down through verse 20 is a description of this very detailed, complicated, elaborate ceremony that they would go through to symbolize the end of the Nazarite vow. So man or woman can do it. It's voluntary. It's for a specified period of time. No touch grape, no touch hair, no touch dead. If you accidentally touch a dead body, like they have a heart attack and fall on you, then we go through a 7-day deal, cut your hair at the end, and then we start the vow over again. The whole previous part of the vow is considered null and void. So those are all the regulations on it. So verse 21, this is the law of the Nazarite. But if he vows an offering to the Lord above his Nazarite vow, in addition to that, as he can afford, in exact accordance with the vow that he takes, then he shall do in addition to the law of the Nazarite. So you can make additional vows on top of it. It was not exclusive. You might say, you know what, I want to give God an extra 10% this year out of my fields, or whatever it may happen to be that they wanted to vow. So I want us to think about a couple of things about this. The purpose of the Nazarite vow was, one, this person's making a commitment. But it was also to be a reminder to everyone who saw them. You're at dinner with someone and they pour everyone wine. I'm sorry, I'm drinking water only. I'm under the Nazarite vow. They see the hair growing out long. They know that the person is under the Nazarite vow. They show up at the funeral and the son's way off to the side because he's under the Nazarite vow. Or the daughter's off to the side because she's under the Nazarite vow. It was something very serious to be undertaken. But it was also to be a very serious reminder to everyone who saw them. Hey, you know what? We're dedicated to God. This is a reminder of how we are supposed to be dedicated and devoted and separated from the world to serve our God. And so it was to be an encouragement to other Israelites to serve the Lord, to live a life of holiness and separation to Him. Now that raises a couple of questions. One, what about Samson? Samson did not make it of his own choice. He was to be a Nazarite from the time he was born. It was not for a specified period. It was to be for his whole life. Well, Samson is an exception. He's a one-off, so to speak. Samuel may well have had a life commitment as a Nazarite as well, but Samson's clearly told to be so. And so Samson was to be a real picture to Israel that all your life is supposed to be lived in separation to God. And Samson didn't lose his strength because his hair was cut. He lost his strength because he had completely negated the Nazarite vow. We know that he went down to a wedding party and that he drank and carried on, broke that part of the vow. We know that he killed a lion with his bare hands, then went back later and reached up into the carcass of the dead lion, touching something dead, and got honey out of it, broke a second element of it. And then when Delilah cuts his hair, that is a complete refutation of his Nazarite vow, which should have been a warning to Israel. The strength of Israel, who is the Lord, has taken away their strength if they totally reject him. So you and I are never going to be able to fully live up to what God calls us to do. But if we totally reject our commitment to him, God is going to take his strength and presence away from us, as he did with Samson. So as Samson serves as a warning to us, just as the Nazarite vow was. But Samson also is a word of hope, because he is redeemed by God and forgiven and used again by God. So even when we fail, it's good to know that God will still use us. Now there's another question. Do we still do this in New Testament times? Yes, we do. Maybe not all the elaborate sacrifice stuff, because we realize that's been fulfilled in Jesus. But we do it because actually they did it in the New Testament. In Acts chapter 18, verse 18, we read this. After they'd been in the city of Corinth, after this, Paul stayed many days longer and then took leave of the brothers and set sail for Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila. At Cenchrea, he had cut his hair, for he was under a vow. For some reason that we don't know, the Apostle Paul had taken the Nazarite vow. And so it is possible to do it in the New Testament, though it appears that the cutting of the hair would be the only part of the ritual, because we don't have a tabernacle or a temple. We don't do sacrifice like that anymore because it's been fulfilled in Jesus. But we can still take a vow, do something to show that we are separated to God. And maybe in your own life it's not the Nazarite vow, but maybe you want to make some commitment to God, and so you do something to remind you of that commitment to the Lord. Maybe say, you know what, I'm not going to have any soft drinks this month, or I'm not going to, whatever it is. I'm going to limit my time on the internet, or I'm not going to watch the news for a month, or whatever it may be, kind of deal. And so I want to do this as a vow to the Lord. And so I would encourage you to do so. It certainly is a biblical, not just Old Testament new. But remember, it's voluntary, has regulations by God, but it's to be a reminder of the person, to themselves and to the people who know them, that we've been called to live a life devoted and separated to our God from the world. So look at me. I probably won't be able to grow my hair out long, but that does not negate the possibility of being able to do the Nazarite vow. So with that, say God bless you, have a great day, and live a life devoted to the Lord.